Okay, so I presume, does that mean that we're here, that we're beginning, that we're starting? I believe, yeah. Marvelous. Is that us? Can I just double check? Is that us? Have we started? Are there? Marvelous, great. Helo, Prynhawn croeso I chi gyd. You are very welcome here today. I need to offer an apology, apparently not on behalf of Scotland, but apologies to all that we're running a little bit behind am ddyheiriadau. My name's Alan Saunders, mi fyddai'n siarad heddi yn Gymraeg gyda chi, my iaith gyntaf. So Prynhawn da, croeso cynnes I chi gyd i'r sesiwn prynawn yma. Giedich, Trenoma, Ced Mil y Fulcher, Fesgyma, Matin Fa. I hope I've got that right. I can't promise that I have. I should have practiced many more times before that. Ond Alan Saunders dwi, fel wedes I, dwi'n ddramodydd, yn playwright, dwi'n actor, dwi'n perfformio drag, yn byw ac yn gweithio yng Nghaerdydd, yng Nghymru, obs. Ces i'r pleser llynedd o ddod I Glasgow I gynhadledd Ceangal Dolen, o'n I ddim yn dychmygu byswn ni'n cael croesawu pawb I fy nghartre fi heddi. So hwnna wedi bod yn surprise, eitha nice. Rhywbeth pwysig, I should have pointed this out before launching into it. We do have, in case you haven't already begun using it, we do have translation or interpretation available. So if you'd like interpretation from Welsh into English, then you need to click on interpretation down here. I'm actually pointing at the actual thing right there. Interpretation and click on Spanish. So that's the first piece of housekeeping. So ymlaen â ni, y peth nesaf sy'n angen I fi ddweud yw, wrth gwrs mae hwn yn sesiwn gyda y cyfle I ofyn cwestiynau ar y diwedd. Bys yn braf iawn I dderbyn eich cwestiynau. Nawr, ar y gwaelod fan hyn, mae gyda ni Q&A. Os allwch chi roi'ch cwestiynau, please, yn y Q&A, fysa hynna'n gret, achos fan hyn yn y chat, mae'n lot yn digwydd yma yn y chat, dyma ni, mae'n y neges gan.
That is a message from me, the translator. Those of you who are speaking Welsh, just get on with it, speak naturally. But basically, put any questions in the Q&A.
We'll just be sitting here looking at each other through a computer screen, which would be very strange indeed. And the final piece of housekeeping is
It'd be great if you could find a piece of music each, a piece of music you really like to listen to. Now, we've all been using Zoom the last 7 or 8 months, and we know that if you've got a camera and sound off, then you've got a little opportunity to pick this up and do a few things. If you're going to do that, that's fine, but find a piece of music that you'd like to listen to, because that will be relevant to one of the presentations we're going to see this afternoon. Now, what's the time now? Okay, I'm going to keep an eagle eye on the time. So, this afternoon, it gives me great pleasure to invite Melangell Dolma to speak to us. I had the pleasure of reading Melangell's work before I even knew it was she who'd written it. I was adjudicating a writing competition in the National Eisteddfod, about 2 years ago? 2 years, yeah. And I read a script that really lifted my spirits about Welsh language writing for the theatre. And lo and behold, it turned out that it was Melangell who'd written the piece. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Melangell to speak to you this afternoon. Thanks very much. Melangell. Well, thank you, Alan. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about something completely different to what Alan was talking about there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Bachi, which means booked, which is to do with the Eisteddfod. I'm a bit of an Eisteddfod fan, but basically, booked was my first big play that I wrote, and it was the only play that I produced up until now. Bachi was staged in the Eisteddfod in Llanrwst 2019, and to read what it says at the back of this postcard that promotes it, it said that it was a Melangell Dolma production, that's me, along with the National Theatre of Wales and Theatre Clwyd, and staged at the National Eisteddfod and funded by the Gary Foundation. Quite a mouthful. But anyway, what it all means, and what does it mean, and how do we get there? Well, back in March 2018, I was acting, and I was an actor who really wanted to write, but that frightened me. But Theatre Clwyd was calling for 3 authors who were writing in Welsh to join in the resident writer or author programme. And also that was in touch with new writing in England. I was accepted, even though I'd never had the confidence to call myself an author until then. So, as part of the plan, I was asked to write a short play, about 10 minutes in length. I had no idea what to write, but I knew that whatever I would write would be read in the Roundabout. And that's a pop-up theatre that's been placed in the Round, of course. And I knew that I wanted to write something that would make the most of this incredible space. As an audience there, you feel so close to what's happening on stage. And I also wanted to write something that had a bit of humour in it, because I felt that it was something that wasn't represented so much in theatre in Welsh at the time. But I still was none the wiser as to what I was going to write. And then it was mentioned that Theatre Clwyd was hoping to arrange a reading of the work on the Eisteddfod site in Cardiff. And so that was it. Bing! The idea had landed. I was going to write a love story full of humour, a rom-com if you like, and the whole lot set on the Eisteddfod site. The National Eisteddfod is the biggest cultural festival in Wales. It's a whole week where people from all over Wales and beyond come together to celebrate every element of Welsh culture and do it all through the medium of Welsh. It's an opportunity for us to forget that we're a minority and to take pride in what we've got and not worry about what we don't have. To dance, to sing, to get drunk, and to celebrate. So that's what it was. I wrote this short play. We got readings in the Roundabout in Theatre Clwyd and also the Eisteddfod. Everything went really well. And the scheme with Theatre Clwyd came to an end. But something had gripped me. The Eisteddfod of 2018 in Cardiff was special for several reasons. It was free to get into the Eisteddfod site. There were no fences, no boundaries. Anybody could just walk in. But one of the things that struck me most was just how much theatre was part of the menu there. I was inspired. I mean, there was theatre in cellars, on the street, above cafes, everywhere. And I wanted to be a part of that the next year. I wanted to extend my short play into a full hour and a half long play and stage it in 2019 in Llanrwst. And so I had 11 months to do it. So I wrote tens and tens of emails, got in touch with Arwel in Theatre Cenedlaethol Cymru, National Theatre of Wales, and he was so supportive right from the start and really enthusiastic to help in any way that he could. Theatre Clwyd also liked the idea, and I spoke about the idea of the Eisteddfod and the Welsh Arts Council and the Millennium Centre. And gradually the plan came together, and the Millennium Centre offered us a rehearsal room for free. And I then just said I'd direct the work and made an application for a grant as an individual. Now, I'd never written an application form for a grant before in my life, and it took an awful lot longer than I thought. But over the months, we found our way gradually, and that's responsible for all the stuff on the back of the postcard. It was tight, but possible. And throughout all of this, I was learning and growing. But I also doubted myself permanently. There was always a little voice in the back of my head asking, who the hell do you think you are? You know, less than a year earlier, I wasn't even calling myself a playwright or an author. But one thing I never doubted or lost confidence in was the work itself. I knew that this play was going to work on the Eisteddfod site. And it did. I was absolutely vehement from the start that it needed to be done differently. I wanted it in the round, informal, and the audience drawn into the story, just as happens in the Roundabout. And in my head, the cafe on my speed, which is a big teepee on the Eisteddfod site, with beanbags on the floor and everyone welcome to bring a pint in with them. It came, the Eisteddfod week came, the teepees were full for all 4 performances, but more importantly, people were seen to be really enjoying it. So I'll show you a clip now of the production so that you can have a little taster of how it was. So here we go. Hope it comes to full screen. Yeah.
Mae hi'n Steddfod! Yr Eisteddfod Genedlaethol! Dim yr urdd.
Dim stori blant di hon.
Mae fora dydd Gwener.
Diwadd bore Gwener.
Bron iawn yn brynhawn Gwener.
Mae'r hael yn twynnu.
A mae pawb chydig bach yn chwslyd y bydy rownd yr ochrau.
Fel mae rhywun yn tueddu fod erbyn diwedd wythnos Steddfod.
Mae di bod yn steddfod dda.
Pawb yn gytun.
Yndi. Steddfod da iawn.
Un o'r goreuon yn ôl rhai.
Ond, dydy o ddim drosodd eto.
Ac mae hi ar fin ddod yn Steddfod, naw naeth Manon fyth anghofio.
Na thir.
Na Gwen chwaith o ran hynny.
So that's a little taster of how it was in that teepee. It is a love story. Bachi is a love story. It's about Manon and Llyr, two ex-lovers who find themselves on the verge of one of the biggest decisions of their lives. It's a story about love and friendship, but also it's about art, the arts, and the place of the arts in our lives. It's a celebration of love towards the Eisteddfod and towards Wales and the wider world. But more than that, it's about Wales. The title, Bachi, plays on words. It literally means to hook in English. But it's used colloquially in the way that English would say pull, you know, in a romantic sense. Did you pull last night? And it's also used to talk about grabbing or seizing an opportunity. So the heart of the play is how much bravery it takes to take a risk without knowing whether you'll succeed or not. Of course, that's applicable when it deals the subject of romance, but it's also true about the arts. The vulnerability is an integral part of putting any sort of work out into the world. So, what are the most important things we learned on this journey? Well, for me, there are several things. Firstly, the importance of investing in artists, particularly those who are at the beginning of their careers. It shows the value that there is in things like the resident playwright scheme in Sir Clwyd, where you didn't have to have a specific idea, you just turned up and found your way. And because of that scheme and those circumstances, that things were performed in the roundabout and the Eisteddfod, and the opportunities, I would never have written books or Bachi, and it allowed the idea to grow in an organic way. Secondly, cooperation. Without the support of all of the companies and other institutions, the production could never have happened. It's evidence of what's possible when big companies come together to support individual artists. And it's also evidence of what's possible on a tight budget, about £12,500. And also, I think it's quite important to create work that isn't necessarily political or to do with the fate of the language necessarily. Of course, some people say that doing stuff through a native language is in itself a political act. I'm sure they're right, but I do feel passionately about us creating work in Welsh. But to have a culture in a minority language that really is thriving, then you need all sorts of genres and work and a whole spectrum, and that is rooted in our unique culture. I wrote a rom-com in Welsh. And finally, the most important thing is empowering artists. The more the artists have confidence to produce their own work, the more varied and rich our sector will be. Now, I had no idea what I was doing at the start, but I learned as I went along, and I knew that I was being supported by people who really did know what they were doing. And in writing that little biog about myself for this conference, for the first time, I've added one little word to how I introduce myself: actor, playwright, and producer. I still feel like a fraud in using the word because there's so much more left to learn. But people like me have been empowered to go for it and take a risk. So thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much, Belanges. I can really identify with an awful lot of that. That feeling of, who are you? I still get that sort of imposter syndrome. How dare you have the audacity? Audacity, I think, is such an important word to discuss. Audacity, you know, I looked that up in the dictionary, and audacity, unashamed venturing. So we'll discuss that further, I think. And right, thank you, Ceangal Dolen. In case you want to Google her and follow her on Twitter and Facebook and so on, wherever you may encounter her. Right, now to Sarah Lloyd. I'm very pleased to say that I've worked with Sarah, and I'm even more pleased to say that I can call her a friend. So here's Sarah, and we're just going to have a little chat, a bit of an informal Q&A, a nice warm Q&A, and we're not going to talk about burritos and things, we're just going to enjoy ourselves. So, hiya Sarah, welcome to the session this afternoon. Thank you very much. So let's start with the kind of theatre that inspired you to start. It's interesting. When you said you're going to ask me that as a question, it's awful. Do you know, I've never thought of it before, but I just realised it was just shows I saw in Welsh, and that age, I wasn't aware. I'm sure I was, but I wasn't really conscious of whether it was in Welsh or English. And it's just an awful thing to reach the age of 42 and think, oh yeah, most of the shows I ever saw were Welsh shows. So they were kids shows, they were by the company Theatr Baracaws, Theatr Gwynedd, and that feeling that most of the actors in those shows came from the area, the locality around me. And so there was no feeling of, you know, that one wouldn't even bump into them. If they went into Caernarfon or Bangor or somewhere, they'd see them walking down the street. A lot of them lived in Bethesda nearby. You know, that feeling they were involved, they were part of the community, they were actors, it was less that they were actors, directors, producers. It just felt more like, maybe I'm wrong in saying it, but it just felt like they were companies. When you think of a company such as Baracaws, which continues to act in the same way, it was everybody's on the same level, and the whole company pitches in. You might be acting in it, but you're probably doing a whole host of other things too. And that sort of seeped, I think, I'm sure I'm not making it up, but it sort of seeped in to that feeling of going to see a show and thinking, oh, yeah, theatre around me, maybe that's something I could do. Yeah. Very similarly, for people who don't know, Sarah grew up, born and brought up right up in the north of Wales, where I was brought up in the very south of Wales. Now, although Wales is a small country in terms of geography, the differences culturally are pretty different, aren't they? But that tradition, that feeling was very similar. Every area of Wales had a theatre company that created stuff, and as you said, not necessarily got a script and staged it. You know, West Glamorgan Theatre, they created work. The first thing I ever went to see was a play called Man a Man, which was devised by the company. And of course, you saw these people, and it was nuts to think by now, you know, that company of actors I was watching when I was about 6 years old, I now know them or have worked with them. And we both, in fact, worked with Tim Baker, the director, in one of the first shows. And there's something about that community feeling of creating work, of seeing work, and seeing it in Welsh. And it was fantastic. Maybe you could mention a little bit about that experience. I mean, obviously, I was trained as an actor in the same way that we've just been talking. You know, actors aren't necessarily people who will stay actors, remain actors forever. We're multi-skilled. We we might write, go into drag in my case, or direct. So how did you make that move from being an actor and a producer? Well, I was fortunate enough to work with a director called Ellen Bowman. Now, I say not long. It was 2 years after I left the Welsh College of Music and Drama, and I left college, got a job, lovely, and then had a year out of work, working at stationers locally, and I was actually really enjoying it. But then I got a phone call out of the blue, and I had an opportunity to work with Ellen Bowman and Script Cymru on a new play. And what that company gave was, since it was a new writing company in both English and Welsh, when a Welsh language play would come up, there was an opportunity for actors to, of all ages, of course, depending on the casting, but if you were young, then you had a real opportunity for that new bunch of actors to come through. And working with Ellen, and of course, it was a comedy, and we were rehearsing, but we couldn't stop laughing. And I was rehearsing, I just couldn't stop laughing. And in the end, she said, "Could you please stop laughing so we can rehearse?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." But what she said was, "I see what I think is happening is that you're seeing what it's like from the outside, and you're preempting the gag. You know, you're seeing it before it happens." Because I obviously found it hilarious. And then, of course, fair play to her. She said, as Malanga said, she said how important opportunity is and how important opportunity is to be given to people. And I'd never thought of this, but Ellen asked, "Would you like to become an assistant director to me?" I thought, "Oh, great." And for me at the time, it was just about finding any way of being in the room. I just wanted to act, but anything that allowed me to be in the room and absorb the entire experience of creating and other people's process, it was just, I guess it's because I'm creative, and I just said, "Yes, please." So Ellen gave me an opportunity too. In the rehearsal room as a trainee author with Mike Povey. Now, Mike Povey is one of the greats of writing in Wales. You know, he's no longer with us, unfortunately. But, you know, being in a room when Mike Povey was there, when he walked in, oh, this is really special. This is a rehearsal room for a new play by Mike Povey. But giving us those experiences, I mean, you've obviously taken a few steps up the ladder, and taking those opportunities is so important. So in terms of your work as director and working in two languages, what sort of experience was that in terms of working in the Welsh language, say, compared to working in projects that are in two languages? Well, there's far less rehearsal time when it's in two languages, usually. It's a feeling of, I'm not sure, it's a difficult question. Right, I've directed children's shows, which, and we rehearsed them in both English and Welsh. And so at the end of the rehearsal period, you've got a Welsh show and an English show. And that company of actors, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would do it in English, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they'd do it in Welsh. And we've been in shows like that, haven't we? And I think it helps if one has been an actor that you know the mental challenge of leaping from one language to another. And sometimes there's a feeling of, maybe it's my chip on my shoulder, but there's a feeling of you'll start rehearsing in English, and no. But practically though, out of choice, but politically too. I always start the rehearsal, the bilingual show, in Welsh, always. But of course, they're both as important, but practically and for the brain, I think it's essential. Normally, there's a little less shows in Welsh than there are in English, and I feel that the leap from doing a show in English and then, oh, this afternoon we're doing it in Welsh, that leap is more difficult than the other way around. So I start the rehearsals in Welsh, and that to me is the foundation of the show, and that is the one in the hard drive. But that's fab. I mean, inevitably, the levels of confidence of people in the Welsh language vary. There are some people who are first language, no problem, and then there are lots of actors who perhaps don't use the Welsh language as often as they'd like. They go into the room, they can do the job, but they just need, it's a bit more of a challenge for them. And that way of tackling it, I think, is excellent. Yeah, it's also, I mean, it always comes up, naturally, but it stops that discussion of, but it's this in English. And, you know, translating it directly from English. If you start in English, well, then suddenly, well, in Welsh, the meaning is different. So the structure or the syntax of the sentence will not always be the same. And so the meaning of the sentence isn't always the same, but that's something to treasure and enjoy. And also the feeling of both shows is different. And that's what surprised me, actually. For example, last year, I was doing the Ugly Duckling, the Ugly Duckling. Now, it wasn't a massive feeling, but there was a different feeling between the Welsh show and the English show. But also, there's an added element, particularly with work for little children. With the Welsh language show, we have to take into consideration that, great, we've got a theatre full, 160 little kids, 4 to 5, 6 years old. But I and the actors have to take into consideration that those 4-year-old children, a number of them in Cardiff, will not come from families that speak Welsh. So we've got to make sure that the show works visually, but that they learn new words. And what's difficult is thinking, oh, wonderful, is thinking if the entire audience are in reception class, then maybe they've only just started learning Welsh and they're there. And hopefully they're having their first ever experience of theatrical work, and that first experience is in Welsh. We've just gone full circle, there we are. But without undermining anything you've said at all, I remember doing a show right on the border between England and Wales and thinking, it's in Welsh, it's going to be challenging. Are they going to understand? Those kids all came in, and I remember hearing them from behind the set. They were all speaking Welsh, the teachers, the kids. And I was worried about how difficult it would be. I was totally wrong. It was an excellent experience. And thank you, Sarah Lloyd, for such a lovely chat. But we're going to have to move on very swiftly now to Eddie Ladd. Again, I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Eddie. Everybody knows Eddie. We had the great pleasure of working with the famous Eddie Ladd when I was in college in Aberystwyth. I was able to do my first ever show and last ever show there. But thank you, and welcome to you, Eddie. I'm going to hand over to Eddie. Ah, yeah, thanks. Share screen. There we go. Right. Hold on a bit. I've done something. Now, here we go. I'm going to try again.
Mae'n ddrwg dy fi. How do I not
Oh, sorry.
when I'm sharing my screen? I've got this ridiculous thing where I simply just can't share normal stuff. So I'm onto whiteboard. Shall I go on to advanced?
Hey Eddie, if you just want to choose, is it your desktop that you want to share?
Yes, that's right. That's all I want to do.
Just click on desktop and just ensure that.
Yes, and all I have is a. Oh dear me. We've started.
And optimize screen share for video clip.
I'll press that then. Okay.
Select the window.
I've still got whiteboard, which is ridiculous. I'm really sorry. I'm not able to do anything if I can't do that. Sorry, audience. I'm just going to have to sort this out. It's one of those classic things that worked and now doesn't work. Share screen. I'm afraid I can't do anything until I can get this right.
You want to try, does it come up as whiteboard? If you want to just choose.
It comes up as whiteboard, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to choose the box next to whiteboard.
Finder. Okay, I will do that. Who can share? It says. Okay, I think I'm in now. Here we go, everybody. Can you, Phelan, can you see me?
Yeah, Eddie, we're only getting half of your screen at the moment.
Okay. Very silly.
It's okay. If you want to just make the window smaller.
Which window, please?
Just the window that you're actually selecting on through your computer. Just the...
Is that better? I've only got me as an active speaker now, okay? So I'm going to put that at the bottom. I'll put active speaker. Okay, I think is that any good?
If you just want to, hold on for 1 second. Bear with us, guys, if you want to bear with us for one moment. Now, Eddie, are you showing the images from your?
I haven't started yet. No.
Yeah. So if you
all
want
I've got is black screen.
If you want to get them into the preview for the way you're going to present them.
Yep. So this would be the first slide that I show.
Great. If you want to just double click on that for a moment. We'll just get this up and going. Can you click on the first slide?
I've done that.
We might just move to questions for a minute, and then me and Eddie can maybe look at the technical side of this. Does that sound correct? Alan, if you want to come back on. And
yeah, no
Eddie
problem. Diolch, Eddie. Sorry, I know how terrifying it is to just be looking at the screen and think, well, is it just me? Am I here now? Am I speaking to myself? So diolch. No, but we do have a question. I tell you what, so we've got a question. Maybe so if Eddie wants to, I need to stop my video, don't I? Let's do that. There you go. Discreet t-shirt. It's I don't like to make public statements or anything. So we've had a question from lovely Marianne about how important is producing to the future of Welsh language theatre. So pa mor bwysig ma cynhyrchu.
How important is producing? I don't know whether Sarah...
Dod mewn, a wedyn, Eddie, os ti eisiau just rhoi wef a bloeddio pan wyt ti'n barod a mae popeth yn gweithio. So, pa mor bwysig yw cynhyrchu ar gyfer dyfodol theatr hyneriad? I mean, mae ar hyn o bryd, dyw Cyngor y Celfyddydau ddim yn cynnig grantiau cynhyrchu yn yr un ffordd a mi oedden nhw cyn, I don't want to say the C words, ond cyn y sefyllfa ni ynddi. So, does dim grantiau cynhyrchu fel ag oedden nhw, ond mae yna rhai i annog pobl i gyd weithio. So, wrth i ni gobeithio ddod allan o'r sefyllfa yma, pa mor bwysig i chi'n meddwl yw cynhyrchu gwaith, falle o gymharu a datblygu gwaith?
Sorry, dwi'n meddwl mae Langell wedi ddeud o, a mae Langell wedi esbonio fo'n berffaith yn dydy yn ei chyflwyniad hi. Mae cynhyrchu gwaith yn holl bwysig. A dwi jyst yn ailadrodd be ddudodd Langell rwan, i greu ystod o waith sydd wedyn yn apelio at yr holl bethau gwahanol sy'n yn ni gyd, a hefyd mae adael i Melangell ger ymlaen rwan, ond o be ymhrofiad di o ran cwmnïau ydy mae'r awch i gynhyrchu yng Nghymru by hook or by crook yn y ddwy iaith neu ym mhob iaith, dim ond drwy gydweithio cwmnïau, mudiadau, cronfeydd, elusennau, dyna'r unig ffordd weithiau i waith mewn unrhyw iaith gael ei gynhyrchu. Ond dim ond diolch mawr i cwmnïau fatha Theatr Genedlaethol a'r holl cwmnïau yng Nghymru, ond ar awch yna i fynd, nawn ni ffeindio ffordd, a wedyn yn sgil hynny datblygu artistiaid. A mae'r gwahaniaeth rhwng peidio cael gwaith yn eich iaith eich hun a gweld un peth y flwyddyn honno. Mae'n holl bwysig.
Okay. Dwi'n meddwl mae'n ddiddorol hefyd ydy, achos mae cynhyrchu fel term, mae'n golygu i gynhyrchu gwaith, i greu'r actual peth sydd yn mynd i gael ei ddangos ar llwyfannau ym beth bynnag ydy o'r gelfyddyd. Ond yr cynhyrchu fel sgil a fel swydd, a fel teitl cael cynhyrchydd sydd yna i edrych ar ôl yr holl fusnes o gynhyrchu. Na doedd gyda i ddim, ti'n bo, sa ti wedi gofyn i fi 2 flynedd yn ôl be oedd cynhyrchydd, be di job cynhyrchydd, o'n i'm yn gwybod. Dwi dal yn sort of scramblo yn trio gweithio'r peth allan, ond mae yna gymaint o waith. Ti'n bo fatha, fel actor, ti yna, ti'n neud yr sioe, ti'n neud y theatr, ti'n troi fyny ar ddwrnod cyntaf, ti'n ddigon sort of hunan bwysig i feddwl, dyna pryd mae'r gwaith mawr yn dechrau. Sgyn ti'n clem, fatha ti'n cael dy warchod, oddi wrth faint o waith sydd yn mynd ymlaen cyn i'r diwrnod cyntaf o ymarferion. A fel oedd rhywun yn dweud yn gynharach yn yr Alban neu'r Iwerddon, amdan bwysigrwydd, ti'n bod, marchnata, yr holl bobl sydd yn glwm yn hynny. Ond dwi'n meddwl yr sgiliau sydd yn dod efo cynhyrchu, ti'n bod, mae'n briliant, ti'n bod, beth sy'n angen i gynhyrchu gwaith ydy artistiaid i gynhyrchu fo, ond mwyn mynd amdan grantiau, gallu cael gafal ar gyllid a rhoi y pethau at ei gilydd, yr holl bethau ymarferol yna sy'n golygu bod y gwaith yn gallu digwydd a bod cynulleidfa yna yn gallu dod i weld o. Mae'r sgiliau yna, dwi'n meddwl, yn bethau hanfodol a yn bethau sydd y gorau oll y mwyaf o bobl sydd yn dall sut mae hynna'n gweithio. Dim just cadw ati i pethau bach nhw, fel o'ch chi'n dweud, dwi just yn actor, dwi just yn sgwennwr, neu beth bynnag. Ti'n bod yna crossover yn bob dim mae pawb yn gwneud, dwi'n meddwl.
Ie, mae gan y term cynhyrchydd ystyr tra gwahanol yng Nghymru a gyda theatr iaith Gymraeg, nag yw e fel theatr...
As, say, with the London Theatre. You know, a theatre producer in London would be a commercial producer who finds a theatre and plows a load of money in, whereas a producer in Wales means someone who will ensure that everyone is paid, coordinates the entire project, and often producers of theatre don't actually get paid very much. You know, I've spoken to an awful lot of producers and worked as a producer on our own productions, and yeah, I can echo what you just said there, absolutely. I've just been told we have video now of Eddie's piece, so perhaps if we stop shut down our cameras and go on to that. Thank you very much. Can't hear this.
Alan?
Hello.
Alan, do you want to take some more questions just until we get the sound right on Eddie's video?
Yeah, no worries. Sorry, Doria Draus.
Sorry to interrupt. Just trying to get the audio right. What I admire about Eddie's work, if you're not already familiar with Eddie's work, is the fact that it's unique. And Eddie has just created a name for herself over the years. She's someone that everyone in Wales is aware of. I mean, we have studied her work in college, Eddie's work, along with Brith Gove, the theatre company. And so I'm looking forward to hearing just so much more from her. Oh, I think we're ready to go now.
Click. Swish. We're backstage. Let's begin. I live here, not in a Premier Inn in Barry Island in the south of Wales, but Maes Glas, a farm in the west of Wales. Most of my work is about here, or the big hereabouts of Cymru, Wales. And in fact, most of my stuff is kept here on the farm. Loads of old theatre sets in the boedy, the cowshed, here in the garage with the green door, and here's slightly off screen in the tank room, the milk tank room where we used to keep the milk tank. Let's go into the tank room. In the tank room there are 2 shows. I mean, we don't milk anymore, which is why there's no tank in the tank room. 2 shows in here. One of them is called Scarface, and Scarface is in all the black boxes, and there's 1 item under the white sheet. The other show is Cofacorff, Muscle Memory, and that show is kept in all the red boxes. Let's pick up Scarface. Scarface is a film, a real film, by Brian De Palma. In it, Tony Montana, who is a criminal, gets kicked out of Cuba, winds up in Miami, and becomes king of the Miami underworld. These are the opening credits to my Scarface. I have opening credits in my Scarface. Here's the show in the theatre. So it's a conventional theatre show. It's a blue screen show. The blue screen is at the back here, and I'm working to camera throughout. Because I'm working with a blue screen, I can be put into any location. When I made Scarface 20 years ago, I didn't have the resources to go on location. So I went on location, back to my home, back to the farm. What happened then was that Maes Glas became the content of the show. So a film about power, a Hollywood film about power, became a piece about a place with not so much power. You can see here how the backgrounds are matching up. You can see the house and you can see the building on the left. This is what it looked like in the theatre. And so a drug deal is now going wrong on the road in front of the house with our breeze block wall in the background. One of the joys of matching up Miami was how it matched up with here. The real scene in the film, which I am copying, matches perfectly with our breeze block wall. And that is why that scene is happening out on the road, and there's no other reason for it. Let's go to another outbuilding, which is called Tŷ Tato. And Tŷ Tato means potato house. We used to keep potatoes in here. We don't farm potatoes anymore. I mean, I grow them, but we don't grow them commercially anymore. On the left, under the white sheet, is a huge set. And when fully assembled, it makes this beautiful 3-room, open, fronted set for a show called Stafell B. Stafell means room, so room B. So this is a piece that was only ever intended to be performed online, and it's still alive today online. It's been going since 2003. It's put together by a software program, and this is an impression of what you see online. The software program merges the 3 rooms and combines all sorts of images together. We made thousands and thousands of images, and then, as in this very hour, it's choosing text, overlaying it with imagery, and deciding on the music. Stafell B has 4 narratives at least, and I'll talk about just the one of them now. At the bottom you see a lorry. It's a still taken from a film made by school children in the 1960s about a village called Capel Celyn, which was flooded to provide water for Liverpool. Liverpool is represented in this panel here. This is the Liver building. We can have access to pictures of the Liver building, and the robots are pulling these images all together all of the time. There is a webcam opposite the Liver building. You can program the software to pick any image that you choose. The beautiful 3-room set of Stafell B was then recycled into another show. 1 room has survived. It's right there. There's an empty platform where the other 2 used to be. All the live content is mixed and beautifully packaged and sent onto the screens, which the audience have in front of them. You can see the pictures of the auditorium at the bottom. It's 5 audience members to a screen. The show is called Cof y Corff, Muscle Memory, and it's a movement analysis of Welsh history. What is this movement analysis? For example, 1400. My choreography is termed shaping in planes, moving from the vertical to the horizontal, flexibly, using appropriate times, adaptive, very functional. Because in 1400, Owain Glyndŵr conducted the last rebellion that we have ever had. The exact opposite is true of the scene that you see on stage. Here I'm doing 1847. In 1847, a report into education in Wales concluded that the Welsh were backward because they spoke Welsh. The upshot was that small children in school were punished for speaking the language, a classic nudge technique which had its effect. So the choreography is termed sustained, strain, and release. The strain and the effort of maintaining a form, the required form, which is unsustainable and needs to collapse and release. Relief, in other words, which only sets up the cycle again. The new attempt, under self-loathing, to form the form. And on it goes. It's compulsive, compelled behaviour. The last piece that I'll show you, packed into a tub, sitting in front of the garage, is Ras Goffa Bobby Sands, the Bobby Sands Memorial Race. Bobby Sands was a runner when he was a teenager. And the other side of the garage door is the running machine on which the show was performed. This 300-kilogram wonder, fully assembled, looks like this. So the entire show was performed on the machine. It ran for 50 minutes. It stopped after 50 minutes. His times and his life. This is your chance now. Choose a favourite track which you're going to be playing on your phone or on your computer. You have 20 seconds to find it. and then we'll all press go together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'll press my go. And now you press your go.
Diolch yn fawr, Eddie. Ddim yn siŵr os oes gan bawb.
Thanks, Eddie. I'm not sure whether Eddie was of the opinion that I had the best piece of music for that.
What did you pick?
I picked Lisa Gerard. And just a track at random and just went that. And I feel like, oh, that was perfect. Oh, great. Diolch yn fawr I ti.
Thank you very much. Phelim, thank you for everyone with that.
I'm really sorry that, you know, something that should go right and you keep pressing the button and it doesn't go right, so.
I feel like that about my life sometimes. Yes. So os allai fod a Sarah...
Right, so if I could just bring Sarah and Melanges in. It was something I started to talk about earlier, but it was about bringing in audiences, and I think this is very pertinent. It's something we talk about in Wales, and we talk about a lot just now. Ellen ap Robert was talking about audiences and work in the Welsh language. So the question is a bit of chicken and the egg question, but does the funding and the work come first, or does the audience come first? Discuss. Does anyone have anything they were itching to say? I think it's a trifle of both. It's a mixture of both. You know that you're funded, and you can only cut the cloth according to what you got. You can't make a show that's bigger than what your budget allows. So you get small shows on a small scale, like Scarface. Scarface is a really cheap show to make. So I had to make it in a cheap way. It's CGI that's so cheap. It's an epic on the cheap. That's what I used to call it. It just so happens, I mean, you're part of your culture then, and your own audience. And so the audience means that you're part of that. And yeah, I was just thinking about my play, Bachi, You're Hooked. It was something that revolved around the Eisteddfod, and you know, you're in a very privileged position because in a way, you have a captive audience, but I mean, you have to compete for all the other things that happen at the Eisteddfod. But you know, your audience are Welsh speakers, they're all there to see stuff in Welsh. You don't have to try and appeal or expand your audience beyond the people you're trying to make the work for. And so I think there's a discussion to be held there. I mean, I don't just take work for the Eisteddfod, but how do you extend that? It doesn't all happen just in a week, but and also I think that core audience of Welsh speakers are very faithful and come to see everything just because it's in Welsh. The thing is, though, there's a lot of people who speak Welsh and who don't speak Welsh, who don't come to theatre to see things in Welsh. So I think there's a discussion that we had about audience. I think it's a lot more complex when you're making theatre in a less used language, but I guess it's similar to trying to draw attention, trying to draw audiences in for any kind of work. Oh, yeah, Sarah, have you got anything to add? No, not really. Sarah and I have toured shows within communities, and touring a show, I mean, there's demand to take shows out of Cardiff across the country. It's not a country where you have to fly for hours, you know. You can drive from one end to the other in about 4 hours, 4 hours and a half. 6 if it's tractors in the way. But do the companies perhaps, you know, it's a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? Is it the role of the companies to take the work out to the communities, or do the audiences need to demand the work before they even see it? I'm not sure. Go into some communities and, you know, they program a show for, say, a Wednesday, you've already hit a block because Wednesday, that's when the local choir practice is held or something. So, you know, you've got to time it. I think if you only go according to audience demand, then it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, no, that's a negative thing, but it's very difficult to be a minority within another culture. And sometimes I would like to see a show about that, actually. Sometimes it's not at the forefront of our minds or the thing that comes out of our mouths, because I don't know, it's the mindset maybe that we can be in, or we don't see the people around us perhaps who, I mean, it's to do with seeing yourself, isn't it? Your own representation of yourself as well. And I would say that one needs to fund the work, and then an audience will grow from that. I would never have gone to see, I don't know, I mean, I would never have gone to see a Breath Gorf show at 13 years of age, were it not for the fact that someone had said, this is a show by a Welsh company, come on, go and see it. And then my mind was blown. A completely new form of theatre has opened up to me. But I don't know if I'm answering your question. I think in those audiences, sometimes the institutions, and this is me thinking out loud, but there needs to be a lot of joined up thinking and also cooperation to be able to take the audiences to things. I mean, in my first experience of seeing a Breath Gorf show live was at University in Aberystwyth, and they'd taken us to Felyn Fach, to a milk factory, I want to say, it was that, to see a show there. I was thinking, what on earth are we going to see here? Not sure about this. So I'm sitting there in this milk factory, seeing 3 people, and one of them's here, with 3 platforms, and yeah, anyway, you just need to take people to see things, and you have to lead the horse to the water sometimes, I think, in order to get them to then realize the potential of how fantastic and inspirational it can be. So I'm just checking the time now, and I'm checking for any other questions. Is there a danger to say, hey, demand's not there, so we're not going to create work like that? And without being adventurous, as Malanga said, and Eddie lives that, without being adventurous, you know, is there a if they build it, they will come mentality? You know, if you say, oh, the people aren't there, therefore the demand isn't there. And if we do it bilingually, oh, yeah, and just tag the Welsh on at the end. You know, we have to challenge that mindset and turn it on its head. Yeah, be uncompromising about it. I think creating work in Welsh for Welsh speakers, and exactly as Sarah says, we need to create the work. And I think the only way an audience can show what they want is by turning up. But even if the audiences aren't massive, you don't know the effect that the work may have had on one or two people within our audience. As you know, many of you have said, you know, the value of work goes beyond the number of people that turn up to see it. Nobody knew that they needed Stranger Things before they created it and put it on Netflix. Nobody knew how much they needed RuPaul's Drag Race until it was out there. And then people said, wow, this is doing something to me. And I think the same with theatre work. The audience is not going to say, we need this. It's up to the artists. And two, I think we just need to acknowledge we are in a very fortunate situation in Wales where the Arts Council we have by now is waving the flag for Welsh language theatre, which is a really good thing. Sorry, Eddie. Well, I was going to agree with you, Alan. There's an episode of The Simpsons, and you see the writers have made themselves into cartoons, and they show the process of writing the episode, and they get a panel of audience in, and they tell them exactly what they want, and then they do the cartoon, or they play the cartoon to the cartoon audience, and the audience hates it because it's rubbish. And it's what writers deal with all the time. So I agree with all of you. You've got to do it, and then we'll see whether anyone likes it. Yeah, it's like the audience of The Voice voting every year for the Voice winner, and then we never see them again. That's pretty interesting for me. There's another question here, and that is whether anybody trained through the medium of Welsh. That's a really interesting question because I've been thinking intensely about this for the last 48 hours. Training through the medium of Welsh. Go. I did in Aberystwyth in 1982. I went to Aberystwyth and there was an absolutely moment, a fateful moment when you had the English block there and Welsh medium there, and I was on the border between the two, and they're asking who's Welsh medium, who's English medium, and it was that second I had to choose whether I was going to do drama through the medium of English or through the medium of Welsh. And I have to say, I'm terribly ashamed. I went over to the English side. I'd never even considered it was possible to study drama through the medium of Welsh at all. So I shifted my weight slightly towards the right, where the Welsh medium was, and thank God I did, because if I hadn't, I'd have lost all my Welsh by now.
Yeah, gwir. Sorry, o'n i'n meddwl am hyn,
yeah, thinking of this, that tendency, there is an instinctive thing to think whether there will be more opportunities for me if I train in English or work or create work in English. And that is always a temptation. It's ironic because actually there are a lot of opportunities, an awful lot of opportunities for us in Welsh. Now, just 1 or 2 more minutes in case you've got something. But I went to the Welsh College of Music and Drama, and the course is through medium of English, but it just so happens we were in a year where there were 5 of us who were Welsh speakers. So we did have a Friday afternoon, every Friday afternoon, where we'd have practitioners, theatre practitioners who spoke Welsh coming in to do work with us. But thanks to Mared Swain, when she noticed that so many of us in the year who spoke Welsh, she really pushed to make a show with us in the third year in Welsh. And so we got more through the medium of Welsh than we would normally have had on the course. I think I'm somewhere in the middle then. I went to the university and then the Welsh College of Music and Drama, and I was aware after getting there that there were people there who had trained through the medium of Welsh in, I don't know, up until the 90s. I went in 99. By the time I'd been there, it's interesting. You got an afternoon. I think we got a day. Looks like it's gone down, gone less. And there was a Welsh show. There were enough every year. Yeah. Yeah, and did you tour Wales for that show? Yes. Not in the year I did, but yes. The ones on the 3-year course did, yeah. And there was normally a playwright writing for the actors. Gary Owen, Sean Arian, Roger Williams. And I don't know if there's a time with Script Cymru as well. I think that's something that we as Welsh speakers need to keep an eagle eye on, because we have started to lose things like that. I'm just raising my flag now. UWTSD, University of Wales Trinity St David's, has started training in Welsh, and the University of South Wales as well. Yeah, the University of South Wales is closing the Welsh language course. A lot of battles to fight. I just want to say thank you very much for sharing, and thank you to Sarah Lloyd, thank you to Melangell Dolma, and thank you, Eddie Ladd. And I can say
Moran Tang, Chari and Drasha. I would like to say that. Again, os oes rhywun yn trio dweud yn
if
Gymraeg.
anyone's trying to say it in Welsh, I'm just really grateful. Please be kind. So thank you, speakers. Thank you, everyone who has arranged this conference this week. And I hope that we can welcome you all to Wales next year at some point, and you'll actually be able to come, and we'll actually be able to meet and actually go to the pub, because that would be excellent. So cross fingers that we'll all be able to do that. Enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you all very much from Wales, and please get in touch with us. If we can lead the way, if we can use the privilege, the honour that we have to help you and influence and learn from you as well, that would be amazing. So thank you very much. I'm going to disappear. Goodbye. All right. Hi, Philip. Can you hear me, Philip?
Okay, guys, we're going to be closing the session shortly. Thanks a lot for coming. And buíle buchas bilin amorach by Law Taida agus Law Akadu. They're kind of research and development tomorrow all day, so you can check it out on the WOVA platform. So join us tomorrow, and we'll be closing this webinar session now.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. Hwyl.
Mille maigwf.
Okay. Stefan?
Hi.
You wanted to have a quick word? gonna see if all the attendees are out. We have a few people left. I could connect with you separately after this.
Oh, fine. Just everything okay?
Yeah, came through quite fine. Yeah.
I just wasn't sure whether I was supposed to be hearing the bit with the music.
That is a good question. I think it was.
I heard nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Was I supposed to be hearing something?
During Eddie Ladd's section?
I heard nothing. There's no music at all.
Yeah, it's strange because it was, I think, through Spotify. Sometimes the link doesn't, the sound doesn't come
Spotify
through.
doesn't let you do it.
So,
I tried it.
and that was it was a pre-recorded video.
Oh.
So yeah, that wasn't live. She had pre-recorded it actually. It was the thing. So
I heard no music at all. It was just quiet. I didn't quite understand what was going on, to be honest.
Yeah. I will connect with you after this. I'm going to close this session, and I am grateful to everyone that was here. Míle buíochas.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, and thanks to any of the attendees and panelists that were with us at the moment. Slán go bhfuil.
Bye-bye.